Hey there, class. This is lecture number 2. So I'm out of the hospital now, so I didn't die in surgery. So for those of you who are kind of hoping that that would be an issue, sorry to disappoint. I'm sitting here in my living room, and this is video number 2. Okay, we touched on, in addition to all the silliness and everything in video number 1, we threw around a couple of terms that are really important for us to define. One, we used the term group. Society we talked about, but I want to define it a little bit more clearly this time. We also use the terms aggregate and category. Now those are all important for the discussion today, which is the subject of groups. So just to clarify what we talked about last time, a society is the largest type of group. The definition we gave before, but it's the group's a collection of people that tend to share something important and the same relative geographical space. Okay, so if society is a type of group, that must obviously mean that there are other types of groups. And there are. Groups, first of all, let's define why we are in a group or what a group does before we start trying to split them all up. The main element of a group is that it's something that you want to be in. It provides something that, without it, there's some element of you, and I mean that literally. There's some element of you, some element of some way that you see yourself that isn't going to be able to be elicited or even maintained without that group membership. For example, you could see, like if you look on Craigslist, and you looked up for sort of support groups, or really any sort of thing you see in advertisements and papers, you see support groups. And the support groups that you see are, like, for example, parents who've lost children. Or a common one, of course, is AA, or Narcotics Anonymous, where somebody who, there's some element of themselves that, whether good or bad is irrelevant, there's some element of themselves that they consider to be extremely important as part of their self-identity. And they really don't know either what to do with it or how to maintain it. That doesn't mean that we want to be in all the groups that we're in. It just means that it's important. Like, for example, right after my wife and I got married, we lost our first baby. And I found really that the only time that I could ever discuss it in a meaningful way and really sort of get across how I felt was to somebody else, typically a guy, I guess, a guy about my age who went through the same sort of thing. And for me, that was part of the process of being able to take something that I didn't want to define myself as, but was a situation in which I had been thrust. And so you might form a group, you might see, in that case, you might see a support group of fathers who've lost a child. Or you see a support group for people who've lost limbs, or that sort of thing. But it doesn't have to be that dramatic. Or that life-changing. It could just be something that you see that's important. Like, think of any other groups you might be in now. Or think of the groups you might have been in high school, such as, on like a chess club, sports team, any of maybe your friends that you just hung out with, some kind of church group, or something like that, where something that you feel is important, some element of you, and you can only express it when you're with other people to whom that is also important. And so you might get, like, for example, when I was in high school, I did a lot of sports, but I also sang in choir. I don't have the ability to sing at all, but I joined choir because the ratio, my wife who's filming this right now just smiled because anybody who's ever been anywhere near me hears that I sing well, or hears that I sing and that I don't do it well. But there was like 400 women to every one guy. So clearly I was going to join choir, right? And so I got like my, Letterman jacket or my letter or whatever. I got that for football and for track. But I also got one for choir, and it had the F for Flagstaff, Arizona. It had the F there, and it had on the little letters like choir underneath of it. And obviously I didn't wear that one in my jacket, and the reason why I say obviously is because the majority of people who had a letter jacket had it for something that was sports. One of guys or girls, men or women. some sport at our school. At our school, sports were really important. Really unrealistically so. We put them up on a pedestal, which is probably the main reason that I wanted to join it, probably the main reason that most of us wanted to join it. We wanted to be part of that. We wanted to feel important and belonging. And some fun was made of like the guys, or the ladies for that matter, who had the F but had like the choir in the bottom. And I remember, I think that they had one for chess, also just, of course said chess down at the bottom, which, now that I think about it, is really sort of offensive, because the sports ones didn't say F with sports on the bottom. And so the idea is that was the group that everybody would want to be part of. The other ones were if you wanted a letter, but you couldn't be part of the other one. So in that way, our school literally, the structure of the school literally was set up that the ideal group was sports. And so then that translated to us to where, as students, we thought that's what we had to be in order to be really a member of Flagstaff High School. And then the kids who didn't see that as something that they wanted to be could still, get their varsity letter, or keep doing it right here because that's where it was on our jerseys, to get their varsity letter, but almost as a sort of, Hester Prynne scarlet letter sort of thing, where you have that little moniker down at the bottom that says, yeah, you're part of, the group of the high school, but you're really not part of the in-group. Okay, so that's our first definition, an in-group. An in-group is a collection of people to whom we feel a sense of loyalty. And so, for example, like if you're in, I don't think that we have at the college, I don't think we have fraternities and sororities, but a lot of schools that you go to, like Arizona, University of Arizona, or USC, or a lot of them out east too. Actually, I guess it's out east too. Where being in a fraternity or a sorority, it's like well over 99% of the undergraduates. And so you're in that group, and by virtue of whichever fraternity or sorority you pledge or join, here you go, you automatically feel a sense of connection to everybody else in the country who's in that same fraternity and a sorority. So in-groups are those to whom we feel a sense of connection or attachment in some way. As I said before in class, my dad's from Mexico, and I grew up, before my parents split up, I grew up in a Mexican neighborhood outside of Chicago. And my older brother, Honorado, who looks a lot more Mexican than I do, and all my older uncles and cousins and everything, used to have this saying, like where somebody came into our neighborhood, they would say, if you mess with one bean, you get the whole burrito. That means if you're from somebody from some other neighborhood who comes in to like pick a fight with one of the guys from our neighborhood, that you're not just picking a fight with him. Everybody, grandmas and grandpas, everybody's going to come running off the porch and they're going to dive in. It's going to be you against everybody. Because it doesn't matter if, like, for example, my older brother, who is kind of a jerk, it doesn't matter if my older brother, who's being a jerk, it doesn't matter if he's getting something that's coming to him. It just matters that in our neighborhood, he's one of us. That's in-group. You automatically feel a sense of connection to it. Now, the equal and opposite of that is called an out-group. An out-group is a collection of people to who we